Hello, it's me. I've returned in all of my awkwardness. So I did not upload, I think it's been 2 weeks now, it might be 3. As I said I would. It's going to take me a lot to get used to filming because I am so awkward. So yeah, give me time to get the hang of this and then we'll be going places. But I am back today. I have my tea, and yes, I left the tea bag in. I'm sorry, Uncle Iro. And I have my notebook. I'm going to attempt the first video that I have done, I don't know, like 5, 7, 8 times. It was the one I had originally planned to do, and then it just I kept running into filming issues, so I did Bessie Coleman, and that one is up. A bit awkward, I don't know. Yeah, it's there. She was a really interesting lady, minus my getting the hang of filming. And I will be, so I'm giving myself things to do while I record because it'll keep my hands busy and make my awkwardness less visible. So today I'm picking locks. I'm not sick. Not that you should be worried because you're not in the house with me and you can't catch it even if I was sick, but it's just it's dry Nevada air. We even have a snowstorm coming, but it's still dry. It's so dry my snake isn't even enjoying it, and that's saying something. Okay, so anyway, today I will be telling you about a man I'm sure most of you have heard about. Yeah, pretty sure most of people have heard about him. He's just unfortunately, his whole history, life is not well known because he was outshadowed by one of his characters. And if he was alive today and knew that, he would be very, very sad. But yes, I will be telling you about Arthur Conan Doyle. Yeah, see? First thought that comes to your mind when I say his name, it's okay, you can admit it. It's Sherlock Holmes. But yes, that was the character he completely hated, which we will get into. Okay, so Conan Doyle was born on the 22nd of May in 1859, and he was born in Edinburgh, Scotland. And I am sorry to say that I didn't, like for quite a few years, I knew he hated Sherlock, but I did not know he was born in Scotland. I thought he was born in England, so maybe that was just me. But yeah, that's another thing I'm sure he would find highly insulting. Yeah, Scots don't really like to be mistaken for the British. So, sorry, Doyle. Okay, now I have to flip to the back of my notes because I wrote down so yeah, Doyle's father was named Charles, and his mother was Mary Josephine Foley, and then of course she became Mary Josephine Doyle when she married him. And he had Doyle had 7 sisters and 1 brother. So Okay. Doyle's mother was a really good storyteller. Like, he was really close with his mom, and that is one thing that he mentioned, is she was really good at telling stories, and he got that from her. He, like, picked it up. She would, like, tell him stories all the time, him and his siblings. And then his father, unfortunately, he was actually an alcoholic, and I don't know if he was drinking at the time, like, that he was married and had kids, because with alcoholics, it doesn't mean they're drinking, you know, always drunk at each point in their life. Is that they have to be careful, you know, avoid alcohol, or they can fall back into it. I couldn't find any information on that. As far as I could tell, like, his father was, you know, there for his wife and kids, at least through their growing up period, the kids' growing up period. When Doyle got older, his father was sent to an insane asylum, a lunatic asylum. And I also couldn't find out why he was sent there. Given the time, it could have been he had, people are sent there for, like, mental illnesses that we better understand now. Depression, anxiety. So it could have been something like that. Or it could have been another reason. I wasn't able to find any information on that. But at the age of 9, Doyle was sent to a wealthy family member. And they paid... No, I'm sorry. At the age of 9, a wealthy family member paid for Doyle to go to school in England. And he was there for 7 years. He went there for 7 years. But it was hard. It was like one of those boarding schools, you know, and back then, not the best. The boarding schools didn't tend to be the best. But he did, his only enjoyments came from, he would write letters to his mom and send those back. They would write back and forth to each other. And it was at the school where Doyle learned that he also liked to tell stories like his mom, and he would tell the younger students, he would get them all together and he would tell them stories and everything, and so that was something he enjoyed and they enjoyed as well. And then in 1876 he graduated at the age of 17. So yeah. I need to stop with my throat. I don't know what's going on with it. Okay, so after Doyle graduated, he wanted to start a medical career. So he went in to study medicine at the University of Edinburgh. So he went back to Scotland. Over there. That's where Scotland is. Just in case you were wondering why I was pointing. It's over there. And it was at the medical school, or the university, that Doyle met Dr. Joseph Bell, who was one of his teachers. But Dr. Bell would later become the inspiration for Sherlock Holmes. Like, he was just very good at observing, you know, things around the school and the students, and Doyle was pretty impressed by that. So he took his inspiration from his teacher, who he liked, to create a character who he grew to hate. It's just sad that he, you know, couldn't use... Oops. You know what I'm getting at. It's sad for poor Doyle. Oh, it's so hot. Hot. Okay. So we're still, if I can talk, we're still at the university. Doyle wrote, while there, he wrote a short story that was published in Chambers Journal, which was a magazine. Let me see. Trying to read my own handwriting is interesting for me. I pity the poor person that has to read it that is not me. Okay, so he wrote a short story, and it was published in a magazine. And the same year he published another, and that was when he realized, so publishing the second one, he realized that he can make money writing stories, which excited him. I mean, for anyone that likes storytelling, that's pretty exciting. I write stories, but I haven't really made money off of them yet. So that would be, I would find it exciting. I don't know where I was going with that. Just go with it. Okay, then we move on to so when he's 20 years old, Doyle went and served aboard a whaling ship that was called the Hope, and he worked as the ship's surgeon on board. All that coughing you heard, that was Jenny. She was rolling on the floor and wanting attention. And that's how she gets it, I guess. I mean, if it works, it works. So the adventure aboard the whaling ship inspired Doyle's first book, and that was about the sea. It was titled Captain of the Pole Star. I've looked at libraries and bookstores for Doyle's other books, and can't find them. I'm sure they're online. Well, I think I have looked online, and they're really expensive. But yeah, if you want to read any of his other works that don't have Sherlock in them, they're hard to find. Just in case, bit of encouragement for your day. Okay, so Doyle gets back from sea, and he begins studying again in 1880. But he didn't have the same interest he had before. He kind of lost it aboard the ship, having adventures at sea. But he did get his master's degree in medicine, medical master's degree. Oh, haha, master's degree of surgery. Just still medicine, but special kind of medicine. And after he got the degree, he drew a picture of himself, and underneath it said, "License to Kill." Which shows his sense of humor, but hopefully he didn't hang that in his office, because if I saw a surgeon and they had that in their office, I would just walk out the door. But that's kind of my reaction to going into a doctor's office anyway. I just want to turn around and walk out the door. There we go. Okay, so he has his master's degree in surgery, and he goes off and he serves on another ship. But he didn't enjoy this voyage as much, and when the ship landed back in England, he gave up the post as ship surgeon. So he, okay. Slightly sidetracked by my notes. And I'm trying not to stare down the whole time I'm talking. But if I don't follow my notes, I will still get so nervous that I'll forget what I'm saying. And you will hear me talking about, I don't even know. You probably don't want me to go down that track. Me a scary place. Okay. Once he got back into England, Doyle nearly went fully bankrupt. He had helped, he had loaned money to a friend who had this great scheme of getting rich, and Doyle helped out and almost lost all his money. So he left for Portsmouth, where he started his first medical practice to kind of make back some money he had lost and be able to make a living and not starve. All the important things in life, you know. Not starving is a good one. There he met the Hawkins family, and he met them because, so the mother of the Hawkins, she was widowed, and she had 2 kids, Jack and Louise. And Doyle met them because Jack had cerebral meningitis, and Doyle was his doctor, so he, you know, was helping out, and he found out that the Hawkins family, they were really struggling financially. I think they were either being kicked out of their home or had been when he met them. So to kind of help them out, he let them come and live with him. And he really, you know, they living in the same house, he really got to know them really well. And he actually ended up marrying Louise, and he called her Tui. That was his nickname for her. So Jack did end up passing away later from the meningitis, unfortunately. I think the mom died soon after Jack died. I wasn't able to find too much information on that. But Louise and Doyle were married by that point. So he, you know, took care of them up, you know, was helping them out, is what I'm getting at. Doyle said that Louise was gentle and admirable. So he liked her, which I guess you'd have to if you marry her, but you know. Yeah. Hopefully, I am not being too weird. Too much of an awkward duck over here. Oh, March. I was trying to see what that word was. Looked like marrying, but without the G, which I don't usually spell words without the G if they need a G. But in March 1886, Doyle began writing the novel called A Tangled Skein, and the characters were named Sheridan Hope, and his last name was taken from the first ship that Doyle sailed on. And then the other character was Ormond Sacker. Interesting name choices. But these two would later become the inspiration for Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. So I guess, you know, everyone picks on Sherlock for his name. But I mean, better than his original name that he started with, so that's a plus for him. The A Tangled Skein novel later became the first Sherlock Holmes novel, A Study in Scarlet. Yes, so first draft and all that. It goes through a lot of picking apart, name changes, title changes, all of that fun stuff. Around the same time that Doyle was writing A Tangled Skein or Study in Scarlet, whichever you want to call it, he was also writing a novel called Micah Clark. And Doyle thought that was the better of the two stories, but A Study in Scarlet ended up becoming the famous one. So yeah, this begins the start of his hatred for Sherlock Holmes, which continues to grow. Actually, Doyle said he thought Sherlock was comical, and he wanted to focus his writing on historical novels, poems, and plays. So there's something for you if you didn't know. Doyle wrote historical novels, and poems, and plays, as I just said. I should hold my cup this way so you can see my giraffe. Isn't he cute? I love giraffes. They are so cute. Okay, so he wrote, and he became famous for studying Scarlet. But he became more famous in the States than he did in England. Which everyone in the States was just... They really liked Sherlock, or everyone in England... I guess States was really, really liked him, and England was really liked him. I don't know, something like that. Okay. Because of writing A Study in Scarlet and becoming known for his writing abilities, Sherlock. Oh no! Doyle just rolled over in his grave. I'm sorry. That is so sad. Oh, poor thing. Doyle met Oscar Wilde, and he is that guy that he wrote A Picture of Dorian Gray, which I think he's known the most famous, it's his most well-known work. He wrote other things, but I think A Picture of Dorian Gray is the one he's known for. And meeting Wilde resulted in writing The Sign of Four, which is the second Sherlock Holmes novel. So for those who don't know, there are 5 Sherlock Holmes novels and several short stories. To write The Sign of Four, Doyle ended up putting off The White Company, which was one novel he was really proud of. Like, it's a historical novel, and he spent a lot of research and put a lot of accuracy into it. And of all the novels he wrote, that was the one he most enjoyed writing and was the most proud of. To the point when he finished it, he said he would never be able to write an ending like The White Company ever again, and he threw his ink bottle against the wall. Which might sound dramatic, but if you're an author, you probably understand that sentiment, that feeling. I've been there, where I don't think I've written my best ending yet, but there have been times where I've written an ending and I've wanted to throw a pen against the wall because, you know, that's the ending to end all endings. That's my notebook on my knee. As far as Doyle's family life, he and Louise, their first child was a daughter, and they named her Mary. And it's said that they had a very humorous family life, the 3 of them. And I couldn't find. I wanted to know what that meant. Like, would they hang out in the garden and like be chasing each other around and laughing, and the neighbors would be like, "Oh yeah, that's the Doyles up at it again." But I couldn't find any information, and I wanted to. But yeah, they had a humorous family life, which sounds fun. So yeah, he's outshadowed by Sherlock again. I'm not sure at what point, but the 3 of them, Doyle, Louise, and Mary, decided to travel to Vienna. But the trip ended in a fiasco due to a language barrier. So they went home. Went home with the. Huh? Okay. Anyway, so they were in Vienna and they had to leave quite quickly because of a issue with a language barrier. And again, I couldn't find any information on it, and I wanted to, because it sounds like whatever happened probably could have been pretty funny. Maybe not at the time, but later. When they got back, Doyle didn't have any medical work coming in, no people needing surgery, so he wrote more Sherlock. He wrote Sherlock stories to kind of pay the bills. Yeah. And then in 1891, Doyle got influenza and nearly died. On his recovery, he decided that he was going to give up medicine altogether and just focus on his writing. And then in why do I keep saying 1892, Doyle and Louise had their son Kingsley. And Doyle was very proud of being a father. And now he had a son. So he has a Mary and Kingsley. And then we go to 1893. And this is the year Doyle decided to kill Sherlock. He, had been working on his historical novels, which he thought he was putting more effort into. He was very proud of them. He actually cared about them. And then Sherlock was over here taking up too much time. So he decides to kill him. Which he did in December. He wrote the one, the fall, where Sherlock and Professor Moriarty get into a fight on the waterfall, and they fall, and Sherlock dies. You all know how this ends. I mean, dies. The little quotation thingies. At this time, Sherlock was still being published in the Standard magazine. So when he died in December, 20,000 people canceled their subscriptions to the magazine. There were reports that London went into mourning, like they wore black, they hung black outside. There's also a report that Doyle was out walking and this little old lady came up to him, called him a murderer, and walked off. I mean, poor guy. It's like, it's just a character. Get over it. But that's how readers are. We get attached. Okay, and I'm going to pause here, and I'll come back. Okay, I am back. I have to keep an eye on the time, or the video will shut down. So it's better if I pause it and restart. Okay, so yes, Doyle kills Sherlock. England goes into mourning. But after that whole Sherlock thing, Doyle learned that Louisa was really sick with tuberculosis. And the doctor said she only had months to live. So when they diagnosed her, she only had months to live, they said. But Doyle ended up devoting himself to her. He was going to be her doctor and take care of her for however long she had left. And he actually ended up nursing her for years and keeping her, taking care of her and being there for her. In 1896, Doyle actually took Louisa to Egypt because he was hoping that the dry air and the warmth would help her. And then while they were there in 1897, I don't know why I say words the way I say words sometimes. He met a woman named Jean Leakey. Leakey? I'm probably saying that wrong. Leckie. So yeah, he met her while they were there. and he said she was brilliant, she was a sportswoman, and she was a trained soprano. Which is, if you ever heard a soprano sing, I mean, that's impressive. He and Jean did end up, I don't know the word for it. Like, they got along really well, and they liked each other. But Doyle never was unfaithful to Louisa. And some things I read mention that Louisa and Jean even met each other. But yeah, even after Doyle had met Jean, he was still taking care of Louisa. He was still devoted to her and faithful to her. So I don't know exactly how to explain Doyle and Jean's relationship. It almost sounds like they were just friends. Like really good friends until later on in life, which we'll get into, but yeah. But yeah, he never was unfaithful to Louisa, is the one thing that was confirmed. And then, so at the same time, they're in Egypt still. Someone wrote a Sherlock Holmes play, and then, or Doyle wrote a Sherlock Holmes play, and then the actor, let me try this again. It was a Sherlock Holmes play being produced, and they wanted to use, I didn't explain that very well. Let me start over, all the way over, from the beginning. Okay, I got it. Trust me, I got it. Someone had wanted to write a Sherlock Holmes play. And they wanted, you know, the Sherlock Holmes character in it. But because he was still technically owned by Doyle, even though, you know, Doyle was no longer writing with the character, they had to get his permission. So they wrote him and asked him, like, can we use Sherlock Holmes in this play? And Doyle wrote back Doyle wrote back saying, you may marry him, murder him, or do whatever you like. So, yeah, he still totally hates his own character. And I don't know if I made this, explain this earlier, but the reason he hated Sherlock Holmes is because he wanted to focus on more in-depth stories. Like the historical novels he wrote, he did the research for them, he made them accurate, and he put a lot of effort and time into them, and then he just scribbled down these little stories, and those stories overshadowed the books and the works he was putting the effort into. So he hated Sherlock Holmes for that reason, because he was just, you know, taking away from all of his other better works, or, you know, the ones he considered better. I don't know if that's a good way to word it. I mean, the Sherlock Holmes novels and stories are good, but you can definitely tell that if you read them, there are a lot of inconsistencies in them. Like after the fall and Sherlock comes back, so before the fall, Watson was married, and Sherlock comes back and there's no mention of his wife at all. And people that enjoy the stories explain it as, oh, you know, she must have died, and they have all these elaborate stories of her dying. But the truth is that when Doyle went back to writing Sherlock, he didn't care enough to fact check himself. So it would have been easy enough for him to go back and say, like, oh yeah, Watson had a wife, but he didn't care. So he's like, oh, who's Watson's wife? And that's why she's not there, because Doyle forgot and didn't care enough to look. So yeah, fun fact for you, if you love Sherlock Holmes, that's where Watson's wife went to. Okay, now we're at 1890. I put 1990 for some reason. I mean, that would have been a huge jump. Oh, wait, what did I do? Oh, it's a 4. No? Huh? Oh. It's not 1990 and it's not 1890 because I would have been going back. It's 1901, which I completely did not write that way. I wrote either 1940 or 1910. I told you, my writing confuses even me. 1901. Doyle went to Africa during the Boer War. He wanted to fight, but he wasn't allowed. I think I read because of his age, he wasn't allowed to fight, so he worked as a doctor instead. And while he was there, he noticed that more of the soldiers were dying of illness than the actual fighting. And he wrote a 500-page memoir, I guess that would be considered, called The Great Boer War. So after the Boer War, he returns and he got into politics. He was running for some government, parliament office, and he lost, but he only lost by a little bit. So he was pretty getting there. And then he wrote, still in 1901, he wrote The Hound of Baskerville, because he needed money, but he also didn't bring Sherlock back to life at this point, because he set the Hound in the past, before the fall. So he still wasn't wanting to bring Sherlock back. He just needed to, pay his bills, and Sherlock was a good way to accomplish that. I make it sound like I don't like Sherlock Holmes. I really like the stories, and I like some of the movie adaptations they've done, and I like the character. I just feel bad for Doyle, because as an author myself, I would find it really sad if I put all this work into a really thought out, well-planned, researched novel, and then I wrote this little scribbled story and everyone ignored the novel for the little scribbled story. So I feel bad for him for that reason, but I do like Sherlock Holmes. So just to make that clear. Ooh, hurry to me, I slurped. Okay, so that brings us to 1902, when King Edward VII knighted Doyle. And there are some rumors, I guess, about this. I don't believe they're true, but it's kind of funny, just for the sake of being rumors, that King Edward knighted Doyle because King Edward was a Sherlock fan, and he was hoping, by knighting Doyle, that Doyle would feel grateful to him and indebted to him in a way, and would bring Sherlock back to life. Which is just funny, even if it's not true. It's funny. A year later, Doyle did end up bringing Sherlock back to life. It was not because of the knighthood, or because a little old lady called him a murderer on the street, or because London went into mourning, but it was, again, because he needed money. He had bills. Louisa was sick. He needed to provide for her. He had 2 kids to provide for, and he needed money. So he brings Sherlock back to life. And I imagine, the whole time he did it, he's in his, office typing or writing, whatever he preferred, away, and grumbling under his breath, yes, stupid detective, could write better stuff than this. That's what I'd be doing. That's my personal thing. So Sherlock's alive again. Woohoo! Poor Doyle. Then in 1906, Doyle decided he wanted to try and run for a government office again. Parliament, government, not quite sure what. And he lost again. This time it was like by a higher loss than the first time. And the same year, 1906, on July 4th, Louisa died in Doyle's arms. And this hit him really hard. I mean, he knew that she was very unlikely to ever recover, but he was really depressed over her death. One of the ways he tried to deal with his grief and to cope with it is he wanted to help someone in need. So he heard about this case of a man who was unjustly accused of a crime, and I have the guy's name here written down, and I really don't want to try and say it. His first name was George. I'm just going to spell the last name and you can try. It's Edalji. Yes, and I don't even want to try to attempt and butcher that. I would feel so sad butchering it. So Doyle hears of this guy's case, and he did some research. He looked into it, and he realized through different things, through his own investigation, that this guy was actually innocent. Here we go. So George was accused of killing horses and cows, but Doyle was able to look into who George was and more about him, and he realized that he couldn't have because of his poor eyesight. So yeah, he went to present all of this, and he actually got the guy, George, released. There is a book about this case and the work Doyle put into it. My mom had it, and I haven't been able to find it, and I don't remember the title, and it's really sad because I would like to read it, but it's about this case, and then another one that took place in 1912 that was also a man being falsely accused and who was innocent, and Doyle got him acquitted as well. So, let me get some tea. But yeah, anyway, that was the way Doyle, one way Doyle worked through his grief, is he wanted to help someone who needed it. Doyle was still in contact with Jean, the lady from Egypt, and in 1907, on September 18th, the two of them were married. Which is why I said before, like, I don't know what their previous relationship was. They were obviously friends, and if slowly they became better and better friends, but they did keep in contact. From what I read, Louisa knew of the friendship between the two of them. He didn't try and hide it or keep it a secret, and there was nothing going on between him and Jean. Like I said as well, he was very faithful to Louisa all through her life. Jean and Doyle had 3 children together. So he had 5 children altogether. The 2 with Louisa and then 3 with Jean. I want to make sure I got... Yeah, okay. I forgot to mention, but before Louisa died, Doyle had already lost his father, and his mother had died as well. So, at the point of Louisa's, so in 1907, he had lost 3 people that he loved and was really close to. After him and Jean married, he wrote plays. They didn't go off too well. Like, they weren't, I don't know, very well, they weren't popular. So he resorted again to Sherlock and wrote the play called A Speckled Band, and he needed money, so Sherlock at this point is like, safe way to guarantee he's gonna get paid. So I don't know how many of you have read A Speckled Band, but in the story there's a snake that comes in and it comes down into these different rooms, and it's the Speckled Band. Spoiler, sorry. In the play, Doyle wanted there to be a real snake. Something he came to regret, because snakes don't act on cue. Like, they would be to the part where the snake has to come down, and the snake wouldn't want to go down. Or it would go the other way, or come down at the wrong time. So they ended up going with some, like a fake snake or a rope or something. I can't remember what they settled on. But they tried the real snake. But, you know, that snake just, acting wasn't in its career, I guess. Doyle also wrote The Lost World, which is a science fiction novel. There's actually 4 in that series. For me, I've read The Lost World because, you know, dinosaurs, and I love them. It's an interesting book. Yeah. I took it with me when I went on the dig to Belize, and it seemed like a good adventure book to have when you're in the jungle, away from civilization. Possibly encourage any dinosaurs out there to come visit. It didn't work, but it was worth a try. In 1914, Doyle wrote The Valley of Fear, which is what number is that on the Sherlock Holmes novels? That might be the last one, but I could be wrong. I can't remember the order of the last 2 novels. I just know there's 2 more after The Hound of the Baskerville. Also in 1914, Doyle foresaw war coming, World War I, and he knew that planes and submarines would play a big role in it. Like, he could see how the newer advancements in planes and submarines would be used in the war. And it's not, I think the idea of him foreseeing war kind of gives this, I don't know, what's the word for it? You know, when they see into the future. But if someone like him, who knew history, pays attention to the world around them, it's pretty easy to see when things are heading in that direction, just because you know from the past that it's headed in that direction. So that's how come he foresaw war coming. He was just paying attention to current events and noticing how similar events in the past had played out and came to war. As for, like, submarines and the plane usage, they were making a lot of, just advances in them. So he could tell, like, planes are going to be used in submarines. He did try to talk about this with those in government positions, but of course no one believed him. You had this guy come to you and be like, oh yeah, this big war's coming. And you're like, why do you say that? How do you know? Oh, I don't know why I have S5 written here. 15? That's a weird one. When the war did start, Doyle tried to enlist, same as he had done in the Boer War, but he was denied. He was put on a platoon, a civilian platoon. Platoon. Civilian battalion. Yeah, and it had over 100 volunteers. Yeah, he wasn't allowed to serve, but he did do as much as he could. Because of the use of submarines in war, Doyle suggested inflatable lifeboats and bells to be on the submarines. And he once again went and suggested this plan to people, but the only one that listened to him or took an interest was Churchill. He thought it was a good idea, but no one else did. And that comes to 1916, where Doyle witnessed the Battle of St. Quentin, and this really stuck with him. A lot of World War I, the people that served in it or saw it or saw the fighting, it really affected them. Like, it was a really brutal war. And the same went for Doyle. After he had seen what was going on in the war, it really hit him hard. And he did lose a lot of family members in the war. His son, two of his brothers-in-law, and 2 nephews died in the war. So he, at this point, has lost a lot of family members, between the war and then his parents and Louisa. So it was really hard on him. Hard thing for him to recover from. He did end up getting into like occult things to try to deal with it, all of this loss. He actually went and did talks about different, I don't know if occult is the right word for it. I'm trying to think of what it would be called. Not seances, but along that line. He went and around and did talks with Jean. And then in 1922, he saw pictures of these little girls playing with fairies. Like, you can find them online. I think they're called the fairy photos. And they're these 2 sisters, and they're out in a garden, and they're fairies, and they're playing with them. And it's been proven that the pictures were just the girls having fun. They had little cutouts of fairies and stuff. But a lot of people believed it at the time. And it inspired Doyle to write a book called The Coming of Fairies. And it has I believe it has the pictures in the book. And that one is easier to find. Like, I've looked for that one online, and I have been able to find that one. And then in 1926, Doyle needed money once more. So he wrote a Challenger book. Challenger is the name of the main character in The Lost World. So he wrote another book with him, and then he wrote the case book of Sherlock Holmes. So he was also diagnosed with an illness, but he still continued his travels, and he would travel by ship, of course, because, I don't know why I mentioned that. It's not like plane travel was a thing. Well, you know, biplane travel. Travel by ship. When they landed, so they were traveling around, they landed back in England, and he was so sick he had to be carried off the ship, and then he was bedridden from pretty much then on until his death. 1930, he did manage to get up for a little bit. It was snowing outside, and he saw the snow, and he got up and went outside, and he, wanted to feel the snow falling around him. And he stood out there for a little bit, and then he had to be carried back in, and he was then bedridden until July 7th in 1913, where he died surrounded by his family. And his last words were for Jean, his wife, and he said, "You are wonderful." So, yeah. That is the story of Arthur Conan Doyle. I'm not sure, again, how to end these. I hope you are learning something and it's not a boring way to learn. And maybe I'll be back next week, hopefully. I have another one I'm working on doing the research for. It just mostly depends on how awkward I'm feeling. But yeah, thanks for hanging out and having tea, and I will see you later. Bye.